Welcome to the second part on Prokofiev's Tritone Devi'ls. If you have seen the first part, you can skip ahead to minute 3. If not, you can listen to Laurent's performance now. Whoa, that is an amazing electrifying piece by the young Sergei Prokofiev. He wrote this fantastic and virtuosic opus around the age of 17, while he was still studying at the St. Petersburg Conservatory. At first glance, with all its diabolic chromaticism and dissonance, this piece does not seem at all akin to the classical theories taught in the conservatories. However, as we will soon see in the analysis to come, there are a lot of classical influences. Prokofiev's style is sometimes coined as neoclassical modernism. But first, let me thank Laurent Boukobza, pianist and teacher from Paris, of whom you've just heard the recording. I'll include a link to his YouTube channel and his video on Tritone Devi'ls. Also, feel free to subscribe to my channel and maybe check out my other platforms. You could help me out a lot. So essentially what is happening is that Prokofiev builds one big energetic rush by using one central idea. I'll label this as the Devil's theme. This theme is omnipresent throughout the composition and presents itself in various ways, as you have just seen on the score. The way Prokofiev handles this devil's melody is somewhat the same way how Bach treats contrapuntal lines in his fugues. It occurs in augmentation and diminution, as well as in inversion, and there is even a stretto. Sometimes the head, namely this leap, is mutated to another interval to fit or change the context. In some passages, as we will see, only the head or the tail of the melody remains. On the other hand, besides the neoclassical approach, the core of the piece is highly dissonant and on its limits of tonality. Furthermore, the piece is highly virtuosic, with all its hand crossing and jumping around across the keyboard. Prokofiev seems to enjoy this kind of acrobatic playing. Remember, this is young, ambitious Prokofiev flexing his musical muscles and showing the world what he's capable of. The piece begins with a mysterious introduction. We hear a devil's growl on the note C, and simultaneously the first link to the devil is presented, namely the tritone F# C, also called the devil's interval. This is briefly followed by the presentation of the devil's theme, a chromatic line consisting of a leap followed by a repeated note and a chromatic descent. It moves from E flat to D, thus one semitone down. The theme is presented twice to emphasize its importance. Next up, a highly dissonant tremolo initiated by placing two chords on top of each other. Prokofiev clearly suggests the devil once again by using this strange bitonality. Notice how there is still room for a small resolution here. In the bass, A# moves to B, and in the soprano, C moves to B as well. The mysterious tremolo fades away and makes room for an uneasy repose. Devil's theme now returns but a perfect fourth higher. Prokofiev uses the resolution ID from the tremolos in the chords for the right hand. And now, for the first time, the theme is altered. The leap is now a minor seventh from A flat to G flat. G flat is repeated and then the chromatic descent is elongated. Essentially, A flat moves the semitone down to G, just like before. So this theme is in diminution. The note values are twice as fast as before. The chords on top of this theme are in diminution as well. Look here, B and F to C and G flat, again to B and F. The tremolo returns in a higher register in another tonality. The resolution is also a bit different. E and D sharp move to D sharp and C double sharp respectively. Almost everything thus far seems to move in semitones. This tremolo ends on D sharp and is again followed by repose. This marks the ending of the introduction and Prokofiev can now present the real meat of the composition. The theme is used in diminution and is supported by fast repetitions of the chords in the right hand. We ended the tremolo on D sharp, and D sharp also marks the beginning of this theme. It moves a semitone down to D. The chords in the right hand also move in a chromatic way, B to C, G to A flat and E to F. Then the theme is answered by a two-note motive in the outer voices. We end it with a D and we will continue with a D. D moves to E flat, however in a leap of a minor ninth. D descends chromatically to C sharp and then another minor ninth leap to D. The same procedure of semitones is retained. In the outer voices we have F moving to C and F sharp moving to C sharp. This motion in semitones creates a lot of tension, and you will notice that Prokofiev does not really follow strict procedures in dealing with these semitones. His intuition obtains precedence over a strict prescribed system. When we look further we will find the same ideas. F sharp moves to F, repeated chords creeping with semitones, and a two-note motive again moving chromatically. With the third repetition the theme is in octaves, which gives it that extra menacing sound. However, the theme itself is more tonal. The leap is altered to a major third, E flat to G. This has as a consequence that the last note of the motive is again E flat. The two-note motive is also altered to a three-note motive, also in octaves. It moves, surprise surprise, chromatically. Take a look at the repeated chords. A flat major is held throughout, with one chromatic alteration from C to C flat. At the end of the system, Prokofiev enharmonically respells the A flat and the C flat to G sharp and B. These notes are the same, but E flat moves chromatically to D. C sharp in the bass now moves a perfect fifth down to F sharp. These chromatic games continue and we get back to the same devil's theme in D sharp. It moves again to D natural. The two-note motive returns as well. Another alteration. Now the leap is a perfect fourth. B flat moves to E flat, down to B natural. So that's now one semitone up. First we had one semitone down, then it was the same note, and now it's one semitone up. But that's not all. Prokofiev uses the two-note motive only once, and he shifts the rhythm by playing the devil's theme before the bar ends. This rhythmic shift creates even more tension. The rhythm shifting is then brought to full bloom with a stretto. A stretto is a passage where thematic material starts to overlap. Before the theme ends, another one is imitated in a different voice. This alternating game of themes even adds more to the tension. But it's not over. The tail of the theme is chopped and used as a rising sequence itself. Prokofiev has now used the Devil's theme in a large number of modifications to create a big build-up. So what do you do when thematic material becomes exhausted? You can state a contrasting passage, and this is the first climax of the piece. It is clearly in G sharp minor. Finally a tonality, I hear you think, but of course not for long. The chords in the left hand are altered again, and this time the alteration goes faster, with new tones every 2 8 notes. This idea continues with firmly accentuated high octaves. It concludes on another dissonant chord. Look at the E and the D flat here. After this brief contrasting and climactic episode, Prokofiev decides to use the Devil's theme again, but again altered. We now find the theme in augmentation. The duration of the notes are twice as long as before. Take a closer look at the interval. That's not an octave, but an octave plus a semitone, a minor ninth, so C to D flat. I think that the semitone movement was the inspiration for this chord coloring as well. We can only guess, of course. You could say that we now have chromaticism in two directions within the Devil's theme, in the horizontal melodic development and the vertical harmonic structure. The Devil's theme is again altered by a two-note motive, say less obvious. A repetition of these notes is accompanied by a virtuosic wild up and downward arpeggio. Do you remember that Prokofiev used the tail of the Devil's theme in the passage where he was building tension towards the climax? Now we can find the head of the theme, the leap and the repeated note. Actually, he now does the opposite and brings down the tension as he indicates the diminuendo. The notes G and A flat are in the bass, and together with D, F, A flat and C, we can already see the contours of a dominant chord on G. In the right hand we have B, D, F and A flat. This is the diminished 7th chord for C major, and indeed another climax is reached on C major. Also take a look at the bass here and see if you can find some more semitone relations. The main theme returns in a very high register, and Prokofiev builds further on ideas from before. The structure remains the same as well. Passages of the main theme are alternated with short episodes with contrasting new ideas, such as this one and this one. But let me take you a bit further to another passage, where Prokofiev uses another counterpoint technique. The theme is in the inner voices, and the left-hand theme is an inversion of the original. The same principle holds in this passage. Step by step, the contrasting passages are getting wilder. It's like a devil who is gradually destroying the piano. These devilish developments reach their climax starting from this point onwards. A scale is presented starting on F and the semitone E below it. You can probably analyze this in a few different ways, but what I liked was the idea of the F locrian scale, with exception of the E natural at the beginning. So I chose F because in the octave before we also had F being played in the right hand. The F locrian scale consists of F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat and E flat. The F and the C flat form a diminished fifth. This is a characteristic interval of the locrian scale, which is anharmonically the same as an augmented fourth, a tritone, or the devil's interval if you like. This F and C flat relation is played out in the next bars. Another reason that I opt for F locrian is the fact that it is often coined as the darkest of the modi, so actually the closest to the devil. But let's not deviate too much. C flat and F flat are alternated. C flat is anharmonically the same as B, and B and F form a diminished fifth that could resolve to C major tonality. And indeed, the climax is pushed with two glissandi, from which the latter ends on C. The devil's theme lands in C, and this is where the codetta starts. The dynamic is back to pianissimo, and the atmosphere is calmer. Prokofiev even introduces a more friendly answer that we have not seen before, a simple comic diatonic G-C motive in the right hand. To completely bring down the tension, the beginning of each theme is one semitone down compared to the previous one, G to F sharp to F, and F to E. But there are still chromatic bursts that give a bit of tension, like these ones here and here. The most highest dissonance is reached when Prokofiev merges the theme with this upward chromatic line. This cluster contains C sharp, D, D sharp, and E. A semitone madness, right? In the final bars, Prokofiev uses a technique that I call liquidation. The 3-note motif is truncated to a shorter version. This 2-note motif starts to alternate in a faster rhythm, something you can see in a lot of classical cadences. The devil dies away and states his theme one more time, albeit in a fading echo, as smorzando is indicated as dynamic. It's really cool to see how Prokofiev centers everything around the obsessive devil's theme. The way he unfolds the development of the piece is striking and highly original in my opinion. I hope it can inspire you as well.